Welcome back everybody to my channel. We're not going to talk about Wheel of Time for now. If you're new here for whatever reason, welcome. I talk about books in way too long videos and sometimes about other stuff. If you like what I say, please, like, subscribe, do all those things. Maybe even share this video and obviously, comment and we can have us a bit of an argument. The other important thing, yes, I've finished A Crown of Swords. I did like it more than, Lord of Chaos, and I'll record another video on it later today for tomorrow. And now let's get to the actual thing that I wanted to talk about. That is Brandon Sanderson. So here's the thing. Everyone has been talking about like the Brandon Sanderson announcement kind of crap for the last couple of days, and I have some thoughts on it. So let's do that, shall we? Cheers. All right. So I'll go through this in basically two parts, and those will be first Brandon Sanderson's announcement of the whole thing, and then the reaction to his announcement and his Kickstarter and all of that stuff. We'll see where all of this will go. I do have some thoughts on the whole thing. I've watched not too many videos on it, apart from Sanderson's, and I've watched Daniel Green's and some more, but here we are. To start this off, however, this is not a video on the writings of Brandon Sanderson. I have read exactly 4 of his novels. That's Mistborn Era 1, the entire trilogy, and the first of the Era 2 books. I will probably read some more at some point. Well, I know I'll read some more when I get to that end of like Wheel of Time. But for now, this is not about my thoughts on his writing. This is only about publishing and the publishing industry and the whole business side of things. If you really want to hear my opinions on his writing, you better wait, I guess. So, once that's out of the way, let's look at the actual thing, shall we? Brandon Sanderson, uploaded a video, announced that he had written 5 more novels. Well, actually 4. I mean, everyone is like, ooh, he did 5, but he didn't actually. He's only publishing 4 of them right now. So let's keep it like a bit more honest. We'll talk about why that's actually interesting as well in a bit. And he announced that he'll publish them himself in a subscription box model and other models, through a Kickstarter crowdfunding campaign that, of me recording this, has over $16 million and over 72,000 subscribers, backers. So yeah, good for Brandon Sanderson, right? Well, yeah, definitely. But it is also good for other writers. Did it, as some people claim, change the publishing industry? Does it have any, larger impact? Yes or no? That's sort of what I want to look at here after I've looked at Brandon Sanderson's video, which kind of made me angry because I'm an angry dude all the time. It's, my job as an old white man, so I'll do that. And here's the problems that I have with it. First of all, the structure. I get his idea, the idea of, I have to come clean and so forth. I get the idea of the way he, structured it dramatically and whatnot. I get that. However, there's a few things that I really didn't like. Point 1, he basically makes fun of mental health, and that's fucked up. I'll just say it this way. It's like, yeah, he's had, that he, during the pandemic, when he didn't have to travel, took that extra time to write novels, which, good on you, Brandon. I'm fine that you can do that. Unfortunately, you were already a pretty fucking privileged person to start the whole thing up. And a lot of us out here did struggle with the pandemic in ways that did not allow us to be extra creative and create more things. Now, I know that Brandon Sanderson is not the only one who did this. Like, the last 2 years, all kinds of media were full of videos, articles, and whatnot, like what to do with that wonderful time the fucking pandemic gave us all. Learn new crafts, do a bit of crafting, find yourself, reflect on your life. And the sad truth of it is that that is really fine for all those people that can afford it. A lot of us could not afford that because either we, lose our jobs, or we still had to work in like essential jobs, or we already struggled with mental health before, and like not being able to travel, not being able to go out, meet friends, and all of that stuff impacted us in ways that, raised anxiety, raised depression, all of that crap. So we could not just sit down and write 5 novels. I mean, once again, I'm glad he wrote 5 stories, because at this point it's only 5 stories and not 5 novels. And, the way he does the whole, like, bit, apart from, like, it being a bit corny, but, that's his style. He's always been the slightly socially awkward, nerd kind of thing. That's sort of his way of presenting himself, and can't help it, right? So good on you for that, and kind of setting it up as something of a parody of YouTuber apology videos, also fine, but explaining the whole thing as his way of dealing with stress induced through the pandemic rings a bit hollow to me, because at the end of the day, he's a privileged person that did not suffer economically at all through the pandemic. Because, he works from home. He, had even more time. Plus, he's pretty fucking well off and can just, do all the stuffs that some of us could not do. So yeah, there's the first bit that I just really did not like. The second part is the way this is framed. This video is framed. It's he's playing with something here. He's done this for a while. This will go into like the general reception later on as well, which is he's sort of self-deprecatingly making himself be the most productive writer out there. It's like, I'm sorry guys, I wrote another novel, and another novel, and another novel. Yeah, Brandon Sanderson has the reputation of writing way faster than most other authors. Is that good? Is that bad? That's another question, but he plays into that, and he does that again. Plus, he's like, we'll do this for the fans, we'll do a Kickstarter. And at the end of it, he makes it very clear that he will sell those books afterwards. So while this is sort of like where we'll go in a minute, this is a Kickstarter which will give him a lot of money and a lot of leverage, but it's not a change in publishing afterwards. So yeah, that's mostly what I found interesting about his video, is the way he condescendingly makes fun of all of us who suffered through the pandemic in ways that he just never did, because, I'm not saying he was happy all the time, but I'm saying his way of coping with the pandemic, which is writing more books, is something that is not open to all of us. And being presented with the whole thing through that, like, making fun of it, pissed me off. Alright, now let's look at the reaction, and then see if all of that makes any sense, right? Now, obviously, people were really excited about this. And, if you're a Brandon Sanderson fan, good for you. I get it. It's nice, you get more books. I'm not a Brandon Sanderson fan, I just see him as an immensely successful author who has written way too many books that I haven't read, and 4 that I did not hate as much as some other things that I've read. Let's put it that way. For now. And that's it. Now, the Kickstarter started and blew past all kinds of goals. As I said, he wanted $1 million to do the whole thing. He's at 16 million now, and he has still like 28 days to go. It will be fucking huge. Now, from my experience looking at Kickstarter campaigns, it'll probably be sit around 20-ish million until like 1 or 2 days before this whole thing ends, when it will probably jump up more. I'm not guessing at where it will end, but that's usually how it goes. You have a strong start, then you have a bit of a lull over the month, and then at the end of the campaign it'll boost up again with all those people who didn't have money to back immediately that go and start, drop in before the deadline, right? That's how I suspect this will go. Could be 30 million, could be $50 million, something like that is what I expect it will be. That's a huge amount of money. And people have been spreading the word online, talking about it, about every single new million Brandon Sanderson has made. And, Nice for you. At the same time, booktubers and other people have gone like out of their way to say that Brandon Sanderson changed publishing forever, as did Daniel Green, who, to be fair, made a really good point, and I'll go into that in a minute, but it's not about how he changed publishing, it's more about how he hopefully changed marketing. There we go. Other people went to do, this is the way forward. Crowdfunding, direct artist to fan communication, cut out the middleman, and so forth. And that's where I have the problem. While this may seem like that, there's a lot of problems with it. Let's look at it. Publishing a book, if you want to do a good job of it, is a fairly expensive kind of project, right? You need to write the whole thing, given. You need to ideally hire at least one editor, probably two editors, one to, develop your project with you, one for copy editing. That costs money. Right? You need to typeset the things. One of those things we rarely think about is like that typesetting actually, is a job, and it costs money to do that. We need to lay out the whole thing. Those things take time, take money. We need to get the whole thing to a printer, print physical books, get it into bookstores, and so forth. That's a huge, project. And that's what we usually use publishers for, publishing companies for. Now, can you do all of that on your own? Yes, you can. But it costs a lot of money, and most authors don't have the money to do that. I am pretty sure Brandon Sanderson could finance that kind of thing out of his pocket even before his Kickstarter, but, yeah. So the way he went there is to say we'll use crowdfunding for it. That's where the problem is, because it means that if you want to do the same thing as Brandon Sanderson is doing there, you need a lot of money in your Kickstarter. You need a couple of thousand, like $10K, $50K to do all of that. Now, how many authors can pull that off? That's like the first question. You have to be privileged to do that. There's basically two ways to get there. One of them is you start out very, very small and just, sell ebooks and shit through that and print on-demand books and whatnot through smaller goals. Build your fan base as an independent self-published author all the way up. The other one is you're already a very established author with a lot of, brand recognition. And then you can step out and immediately pull those kind of numbers. Brandon Sanderson's part of the latter. Now, how did he get there? Well, through writing a shit ton of books and having a lot of luck. And all those books got published through traditional publishing companies and all of that stuff. Then he got the boost from being hired to finish The Wheel of Time, which he did, and gave him access to an entire second fan base. And this is where it gets good. He has certainly been cultivating those fan bases and done all of that stuff. But, and this is interesting when you look at his video, he talks a lot about, in the first part, about how I wrote these books, and then he makes sure to talk about his team, his company. So while it looks like Brandon Sanderson is doing this, who's really doing this is Dragonsteel Publishing, which is, at the end of the day, a company, almost a publishing house. It's exclusively publishing Brandon Sanderson's books and merch and whatnot. But, at the end of the day, he does have a company that does all of that stuff. Independent authors can't pull that shit off. If you want to send out 1,000 packages of books to friends, to people that bought your stuff, if it's 1,000, maybe only 500. Have you ever packed 500 packages and shipped them off? That's a lot of work, I can tell you, because I've been doing that kind of stuff, right? So at the end of the day, what he's doing there is basically running his own publishing house for his own books. And he can do that because his own books are selling enough for that. He's running his own company there. So, did he change publishing, or did he just, establish another smaller publishing house? That's a big question there. And how will that go? Will, at some point, Brandon Sanderson do what a lot of, larger musicians have done, which is, sign off that stuff, sell off Dragonsteel to one of the major publishing houses out there? Quite likely. Quite possible, right? So, there's no guarantee that this will change publishing. What it might do, and this is something that I'm not sure will be a good thing, is that it may encourage other authors of Brandon Sanderson's stature to do the same thing, which is run a Kickstarter for their next project. Don't go through the traditional publishing route, for starters. And good on you for that. But there's very few authors of that kind of stature. I would say when it comes to our, small field of sci-fi, fantasy, maybe horror, there's a bunch of authors who can pull this off. Stephen King could pull it off. J.K. Rowling, no matter what you think of her, could probably also still do this if she would publish a new Harry Potter book. For other stuff, probably not. I don't know. George R. R. Martin could possibly do it if he had written anything in the last couple of, in the last decade, I guess. But beyond that, it's very few authors who can do that kind of thing. So what will happen? Authors that can pull this off, like Brandon Sanderson, and we see already that he's in his video, he talks about how he will make these books available later on and keep them in print. So how you can read the whole thing is Brandon Sanderson runs his Kickstarter, sees how many millions of dollars he can make through this, and he'll use this as leverage to then negotiate a deal with a traditional publishing house to keep these books in print after this exclusive first print run. And he'll use that as leverage to get even, better conditions with his publisher. Now, to be sure, someone of the stature of Brandon Sanderson already has preferred treatment by his publisher. A lot of it. So if that is where publishing is running at this point, with extremely large authors, using crowdfunding to siphon away more income from publishing companies to themselves, this means at the end of the day that publishing companies have less money to spend. And that's not good. Why is it not good? Because, and this is something that goes for the music industry as well, and I'll go into more detail later. Basically what happens is, you run a media publishing company in whatever way. What you do is, you have a few really good sellers, top sellers, your Brandon Sandersons, your George R. R. Martins, and that's where you make the bulk of your income. And you use some of that money to do what I usually call gambling, which is you look at new and upcoming authors and publish their debut novels or debut albums when I talk of music industry, right? And you hope like hell that some of those will actually, catch the interest and break even, make a bit of money, show potential, and then you support those authors and hope that they will sell more the next time round. Now, if your overall budget, because you take your overall revenue, goes down because your top sellers take more of that cake to themselves, more of that money to themselves, you have less money to spend on new and upcoming authors. And you'll probably, because as I said, it's sort of like an investment or gambling, you'll pick the ones that you are most sure will make a lot of money. So you'll probably not risk too much on like an outside choice where you're like, you know what? I like it. It's really intriguing, and it has this outside chance to actually catch some other people. Your, future cult authors, your future underground hits, that kind of stuff, right? They will not get hired. They will not get, any book deals if there's less money to go around in that area. And they'll just never get that big chance. And here's the point. We still do need that publishing industry as upcoming authors. Why do we do that? Well, as I said, producing books is expensive stuff. It is a lot of upfront investment. Editing, typesetting, layout, marketing, printing, shipping. That stuff, distribution, that stuff costs a lot of money and takes a lot of time. And that's basically where your publishing company comes in. They're basically buying these things, investing, and hoping that at a year later, that stuff will actually pay off. Roughly a year later. I mean, even Brandon Sanderson is like, you know what? We'll start sending that stuff out in 2023, right? So yeah, So that's why up-and-coming authors, not like the uber-size authors like Brandon Sanderson, need publishing companies, because otherwise their stuff will not get out. Yes, you can self-publish and rely on word of mouth to actually sell your stuff, but that will not happen to a lot of authors. And it requires something that is, not everyone has, which, brings us to that other aspect and the Daniel Green video about like how he changed publishing forever. There's problems there as well. So yes, let's just argue that what Brandon Sanderson did have an impact. He managed to roll out a product, run a Kickstarter campaign, and the whole social media campaign for this has been extremely well done. Of course, he has a large audience to go with. He has worked on this over the last year with his YouTube channels and whatnot. He has put in a lot of work there. I agree. But, once again, he has a company behind it. He has people to organize his social media feeds. Yes, he sits down and does his Q&A. Yes, he sits down once per week or whatever and records a video or two, with the help of others. He doesn't sit down and edit the whole thing afterwards, personally. I never do, but other people on these YouTubes do. He doesn't do any of that work. So saying he's run like a fabulous marketing campaign there is a bit of a problem. He's done this with the help of a pretty large team of well-paid people. So yeah, saying publishing companies should do the same thing as Daniel Green does, which is the point where I agree with him, is right. Yes, publishing companies should take note and try to, invest more in social media campaigns to organize these kind of things. The problem, however, is, and this is where I disagree with Daniel Green, wildly disagree with him, is to say that it is on authors to do that kind of thing. Because while he points out arrogantly that yes, if you are afraid of public speaking, you can make it to a 400k subscriber YouTube channel. Well, Daniel Green can. Not everyone can. And the argument of just try harder and you can do it is a pretty fucked up mindset to begin with. No, not everyone can achieve everything if they only try harder. We don't all have enough, legs to stand on and put on those boots with our bootstraps. That's the problem. We can't all do that. The other side is that ideally, authors should not spend about 50% of their time with social media stuff to build up their own brand and whatnot. It's basically the same thing we have with underground musicians, where it has been like that for a long time. It's like you basically spent more time marketing your product than creating your art. And that's pretty fucked up if we think that is going to be the future of it. If we think, and Daniel Green and some other people basically seem to either imply this openly or kind of, probably are not aware of that. That's the direction where we're going, but that's the direction we are going, is if there's less and less budget in traditional publishing and authors are to do more and more of that, we'll take them away from being artists. We'll force them to do, their own marketing campaigns, their own brand building, all of that stuff. And that takes away from their time to create art. And it makes it even more difficult for up-and-coming authors to, actually hone their craft, get their books written, or even reach that level of notoriety, word of mouth and whatnot, depending on, their talents or capabilities when it comes to social media marketing. To even reach that point of notoriety where a traditional publishing house will entertain, signing them, taking them under contract to publish their next novel. Because if you basically have to do your own campaign, your own marketing, all that stuff after writing your book, and for whatever reason you suck at it because, you don't have enough time and energy next to your, day job and all of that stuff, because we're talking unpublished authors here, right? To sit down, learn how to cut and edit videos, practice your public speaking, do your own video, YouTube channel, run your own, Twitter that goes beyond just, posting one update per day. If you don't have the time and energy to put all of that work in on your way to becoming a published author, you'll never reach the level where someone will notice you and maybe give you a chance because you already have like a, as in the case of Daniel Green, a 250k, 400k YouTube channel, right? Yes, you put a lot of work in there, but you put your work in there mostly as a YouTuber and did create your first 2 novels, books, on the side. They were not your main thing. You had your main job, which was building your platform. So good on you. Other authors don't have that time. Other authors don't have the energy, the luxury, and the privilege that it takes to create art and market yourself to the point where people will offer you beneficial deals, which, as I already pointed out, will become less and less if the few really top earners in that field manage to leverage their popularity through stuff like Brandon Sanderson's Kickstarter and other things like that. Will leverage that to take even more money out of it. We'll reach the usual, Spotify model, to go back to music, where a few top earners will take everything and all the rest will get basically nothing. Just with the added complication that physical books, at least, are a way more expensive product than music in physical format. Creating a CD and shipping it is complicated, but the costs are, and the time it takes to do that is less involved than printing books and selling them. So believing that it has changed the publishing industry is one thing. Believing that it has changed the publishing industry for the better is an entirely different thing. And when you look at who is actually celebrating that, it's people who are already digital natives, who spend a lot of time on social media and are happy that their preferred living space, which is the social internets, seems to be winning right now. Which brings me to the last part for today. The winning, being part of the winning team. And I've talked about that before, right? There is this odd thing going on with Brandon Sanderson, and that's the fascination with numbers. We like numbers with something that I've spoken about before. It goes all the way back to, the Enlightenment, our turn towards natural sciences, and our idea to quantify everything. And then, with the advent of social media, share all our numbers, how many steps we took each day, how many pounds we lost on our weight loss journey, how many books we've read this year, how many pages. We parade that stuff around in social media. And we like to associate with successful people, which has led to this odd side of the Brandon Sanderson fandom where everyone is celebrating how many pages the guy is writing, how fast he's putting out books. It's like being a fan of Brandon Sanderson means being a fan of a successful author, of an insanely productive author. And he's playing into that, right? Which is why he says he has written 5 novels. He's only publishing 4 of those. Plus, he has only written first drafts for now. He has only written first draft. He says he will need an entire year to revise that stuff. So he's building into that myth. He's leaning into the myth of being insanely productive. And the fandom laps this up, right? They're like, wow, look at Brandon Sanderson. He's written more pages. Wow, isn't he insane? And we're his fans, so we're kind of cool too, because we're associated with this insanely successful author. Next side of this is the Kickstarter. It's moving fast. Everyone wants to share it, share the numbers, see how our good buddy Brandon Sanderson has now $10 million, $15 million, $16 million, and so forth. I don't know. It's weird to me because at the end of the day, we're still talking books. We're still talking art. I hope. And the way it is dealt with right now, the fascination on the numbers, the page count, the quantity, all of that stuff is looking at aspects of books as entertainment that have nothing to do with the actual content, with the actual quality. Will those books be good or not? We don't know. I will not, as I said, talk about his writing so far, but I will say that right now people are buying this stuff. People are running around, sharing it everywhere, because they are in love with the numbers, with the sheer numbers, and trying to be cool by association with big numbers. And that's kind of weird and scary in a lot of ways. I just wanted to point that out, right? It's like, yeah, look, he's done this. Us on the internet, we are part of this. We're part of this crew that does stuff online. And we'll defeat the traditional media. And that's sort of like where we'll probably end this for today. Don't get me wrong, publishing, book publishing, media publishing as a whole, the music industry, the entertainment industry as a whole has like a bad reputation, and a lot of that's earned because, you know, there's a lot of crap that goes down there. But the way we out here celebrate every potential big L they take with something like this, we're basically leaning into that, because at the end of the day, yes, Brandon Sanderson has launched this thing, but it's Dragonsteel. It's a company that makes this money, and after they've taken all our, we're gonna show them the traditional publishers, we'll give him his money now, he'll just go back to one of the big publishers and negotiate an even better deal for those 4 novels, because you can always go and say, look, I already sold like 100,000 copies all on my own. You better give me even more money and more money and more money. So at the end of the day, we're helping those bad aspects, the really bad aspects of the publishing industry, by going with what Brandon Sanderson does here. So if you think that Brandon Sanderson's great campaign, as I said, it's very professional, has actually helped us, the small-time readers, has stuck it to the big publishing industry, you're wrong. What it at the end of the day is a very privileged author making fun of us less privileged, then taking all our money to leverage even more from the publishing industry. And that's bad. That's not good. So I don't know. Go enjoy those books if you really want to read them. And I hope they're really good. I don't think it's actually that good that Brandon Sanderson went this route. But, you know, if you're actually in a larger publishing company, think about marketing, because that part was actually really good. All right, let me know what you think. If you like this, you know, subscribe, do the good things, and I'll talk to you about something else real soon. And until then, cheers.